The purpose of this set of videos is to help us become comfortable with the idea of source control and with Git and with GitHub, and just not have it be a mystery for us. And so let's go ahead and open Visual Studio. We'll create a new project, and then I'm going to use the Model View Controller template, and we'll call this Git Fun. This is going to be some Git Fun. All right, we'll just leave the defaults, target 3.1, and we'll create this. Now, the whole purpose of source control, again, historically, as a programmer, and I've worked in this environment, when you don't have source control and you're working as a team on a project, you're all trying to modify files and update things, and inevitably, what happens is you get two people who modify the same file at the same time, and then they're both trying to copy it into the project. Well, one copies over the other one's stuff, or you realize that you both worked on it, and then you're trying to go through line by line and fix those results. And besides that, sometimes we make updates to the program that we didn't mean to do, or that are catastrophic to the program in some way. We want some sort of version history that we can roll back and say, go back to that one where it worked, because whatever I did, messed that up. That's a very common thing. And also just backup and storage and all of that. And so all of these problems that I'm discussing are resolved through source control, where we have some hub somewhere, and GitHub is one instance. If we go and look and see, if I just pull up a browser here and we say GitHub competitor, so GitHub is for sure one of the heavy hitters in the market. But if you look at GitHub alternatives, and we'll see here Bitbucket and SourceForge and some of these ones that we recognize. Let's see. Let's look at another little article here. Yeah, Azure DevOps. If you're working in Visual Studio, that's an option. There's all these different places you can go and store the information that you are for your code. GitHub just happens to be one that's done it very well and is very widely used in industry. And so with this, we have kind of two different things going on. You have Git, which is to kind of what you think of GitHub, to do it on your local machine. It's all the source control for your local machine. And then you have the hub that you go up and put it on, and that's where you can go put it on Bitbucket or Azure DevOps. And so we use Git as the source control, but to then go interact with others, we need some sort of hub, and that's where the GitHub comes in, where it's online. You go upload it to the cloud somewhere, and multiple people work on it. Man, this thing is full of ads, isn't it? Let's get out of this website before it steals all our data. Anyway, my point is you hear about GitHub a lot, but there are other programs out there that do it, Azure DevOps being one of them. Well, we'll mess around with Git and GitHub and hopefully kind of help to understand, the difference in that process. And so notice, as we come into our program, we have here Git, and it has these different options. So I can create a local repository without ever going to GitHub. And so I can create a Git repository, and I'll do that for this particular project. So I'm going to go create a Git repository. So again, to do that, I just went to the Git menu, and then I said create a Git repository. And it could be that you go up and create the repository beforehand, and then you just connect to it. Now I'm going to come in here and I'll leave the repository the same name as the project, Git Fun. I'm going to make this a public repository. Now obviously someday when you're working on a real project, you don't want your code to be public, and that's where the paid versions of GitHub come in that have additional features. But for now, we're going to leave them as a public repository so that others can see it. And so now we're going to do two different things. So first of all, we're going to create this repository out on GitHub. And then we're going to take our local repository, our local Git repository, and push it up to GitHub. All right, now kind of start this process. Now again, you can use just Git locally on your machine and do all the same kind of source control type things with your own projects. But as soon as we get into sharing them, which is the idea here, we're going to work on a team, then we need to get them up to the hub in order to be able to work with it. So I'm going to create and push this project. And then if I come in and go to github.com, I'm already logged in. And so I'll see here this new Git Fun repository. And it's been pushed up here now. Anybody can pull it, right? And so, well, and really anybody can pull it when it's public, but team members that you're working with can get in and modify the code and do whatnot with it as soon as you get it up to the hub. So I've worked with it on my local machine, and I can go in and you know, so as I work with it on my local machine, I come in now, it's pushed up, I can see it's connected to Git Fun, and I can go in and make a change. And when I make this change, so I'll come into the index and just say, in a paragraph, hey, I did something here. I've made a change, I save that. Well, you'll see now that it shows, hey, there was a change made. You can see that little edit with the pencil, there's a change, and you'll notice there's a Get Changes tab. But this will take us, if I click on this, it'll take us to our Get Changes tab, and it says, oh, index.cshtml has changed. All right, and the cool thing is you get into this whole source control thing. If you double click on this, it'll show you, here's what was changed. Here was the original file, and here is the new file. And I can look at this and say, okay, yeah, that is something I wanted to happen. And so what do I want to do? Well, so there are two different steps as we move information around. There is stuff that happens on our local machine, and then there's stuff that happens up on the hub. So there's two different words for this. The commits. Commits are things that happen to our local repository. And so I'm making a change here, and in order for me to get this anywhere, I need to commit it to my local repository, because currently I'm just working on the project itself. It's not involved at all in the source control when I made this change. And so in order for me to get this information to my local repository, Git, then I need to commit it. And so here, we always, when we do a commit, we have to make a message. And so I'll just say, you know, modified index file to do something. This is going to be very exciting, my little messages here. Okay, so explaining what the change was, and then I can go in and I can commit all, or I can commit and push and commit and sync and these different things. But for now, I'll just commit this file. So when I commit, then it commits it to the local repository on my machine. But it hasn't gone up to the hub. If I go up and look, and I can do this, I have it open, so if I go out now and look at Git Fun, I go to that particular view, I pull up our index, it's not going to have that code in there because I never pushed it. I committed it to the local repository, but I never pushed it to the hub. And so now I can see here I have one task outgoing, and if I click on that, it'll say what we need to do is to push. I modified the index file to do something, but it hasn't gone up to the hub yet, and so the next step is to push it to the hub. All right, well, so I can come up here and push this change to the hub, but I'm not going to do that quite yet because we have a second user, and I'll talk a little bit more about my team member, the second user, in the next video. Spencer, out.